Introductions here. What is this all about?
Hey, hi Babu. So this discussion is about we are assessing a tool, ServiceNow tool, where uh, we will be using this in our audit assessments.
Okay.
So currently we are being taken through the. Uh, we have given them the steps or our audit workflow that in this manner we perform our audit, and basis that ServiceNow team has created instance to take us through as an example how tool will be helpful to us uh, performing those actions in our audit workflow. So we'll have demo of the tool now.
Perfect. So I have started the recording. After the session, I'll share the link. Okay.
Okay.
Great. Over to you, Sachin.
Okay, thanks, Narayan. Hi, everyone. My name is Sachin, and I'm going to show the ServiceNow application, the integrated risk management application here. And you don't have to worry about the recording actually, because we are going to share with you the step-by-step instructions on how to conduct these tests. Of course, we have created a few test scenarios which we think will be good enough for you to cover the majority of the end-to-end life cycle for risk management, controls, and as well as the audit management, right? So today we will start with risk management first, and we have 2 hours now. Usually, I will, as part of the risk management exercise, I will also create an audit engagement. We'll show it together so that it's covered, but there might be definitely some additional session required if we are not able to cover everything in the 2 hours today. So we will set that up after at the end of the call today. Okay, so first question I have is, we did share some links yesterday. So I'm not sure, I know it was very last minute, but there were a couple of YouTube videos in that which shows a basic user interface, basic navigation of ServiceNow. So, before you start using, you will have to be aware of the way how to navigate to the platform, right? We will have given you login IDs and passwords. We have created some generic login IDs, for example, risk manager, audit manager. Okay, so we'll give you those IDs and passwords. And once you log in, you will see the ServiceNow homepage, which is like a dashboard. Now, every user may have a different dashboard once you log in, right? Because there are different dashboards, and once you set a specific page as a dashboard, for example, if I am audit manager, I can just set the audit engagement overview as my homepage. So the next time I log on to the tool, it will always open this homepage. Okay, and there are multiple homepages which can be managed. To give you a quick overview of what is a homepage has different types of content. It can be a report like this one, what you see here, which is like a bar chart or a pie chart or this kind of a score, okay, or a list of things to do, my audit tasks or overdue audit tasks for me or for my team, right? Those kind of things. And this is completely configurable. As long as the data is there in the system, you yourself can add any type of, this type of widgets. And we will show you later, maybe not today in the next session, but definitely we will cover how you can create your own reports, basic reports in ServiceNow. Obviously, for some advanced reports, you need developers like us, but basic reports you can do once you start using and you have some good hands-on experience working on the platform and some basic platform training, you will be able to create your own reports and put them on your own personalized dashboard as well. Okay. On the left here, this is what we call the filter navigator. This is the menu for the ServiceNow. So it depends on your access. Every user has an access. Now, I am an admin user. I'm logged in as an admin. So I have a lot of menus here. But if you are just an audit manager, you may only see the audit application and maybe the controls application as well, because you need to add your controls as part of your audit engagements. So it is all managed by role. Depending on your role, you will see what application menus you see on the left-hand side. Okay, and then there are simple user UI things like, for example, you can add favorites, right? So if I just click on the star, this module will appear in my favorites. It's like, creating a bookmark in your browser. Okay. So yeah, so this is the basic. The way to go is you have to click on this and it will open the underlying menu items. So I click on the audit menu, and under the audit menu, I can see an overview tab. Overview is basically the same. It opens the dashboard, the audit dashboard. Okay, it's loading. Okay, and then we have different options which are available to the user. And again, when we do the implementation, we will walk through this in detail with you, and we can, add or remove menu items in this. Right? So you have things like create a new audit engagements, or view of list of all audit engagements, or my engagements for which I am the assigned to user. And then there are the scoping options. I'll come back to scoping shortly. And then the audit tasks, audit test plans, issues, and remediation tasks. So these are all part of the audit engagement. We will come to it. Similarly, we have another menu here called risk management. So if I go to risk management menu, I have a risk library where I can view the list of all the risk frameworks, risk statements. I can view the list of entities. I can view the list of risks, which is the risk register here. Okay, all risks, all risk assessments. Again, depending on your role, you may or may not be able to view some of these modules. Okay, and then risk has its own life cycle. So we have an assessment methodology, and once assessments are completed, then depending on the risk assessment outcome, there might be response tasks, right? So we may have risk response tasks, and we may have to create issues and remediation tasks. So there is a workflow associated with risk management, which we'll go through. I'm just showing you the menu items, like where you access each of your work which you have to do on the platform. So it's all over here.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions so far?
Nothing from my end. Team, anybody, you have any queries?
Not
I
yet.
guess.
No, Antarish, nothing right now.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So let me first start with risk management today. And before we start with risk management, I would like to spend a little bit of time talking about scoping. And this is a common module across risk, audit, and compliance. You have noticed the scoping module is here in risk. It's also there in audit and compliance as well. Why? Because it's the common agent which binds all these applications together. In fact, entities are what makes our application an integrated risk management IRM application. So what is an entity? An entity can be any type of entity. It can be a department. It can be a business service, like, for example, email service, or it can be like SAP application. It can be a department like IT department, IT security department, physical security department, HR department, or it can be at a company level. For example, I have an entity called Emphasis. So what will happen is whatever control tests, control assessments, risk assessments we are doing, all the indicators, all the scoring, we have a roll-up from downstream entities to upstream entities. Okay, so if I look at, I would like to generate or have a quick look at what are the different entities within Emphasis and what are the overall compliance you can see. So, for example, we have departments, like these 10 departments are downstream entities for Emphasis as a company, and I can see what are the downstream risks, downstream controls, what are the different audit engagements, everything. Okay, so an entity is basically, like I said, we have to define an entity because every control objective or every risk statement has to be associated with an entity type. Okay, So once I create, let's say I have 10 different departments, okay, and every department is basically an entity under the entity type called department. Okay, so the next time I have a new risk, and I'll show you an example. Let's start with that. Let's start with the operational risk. Okay, so suppose I want to create a new risk statement which is falling under the operational risk area. So the first thing, which is as part of the risk library, we have a risk framework. Risk framework, like you can see, can be operational risk or technical risk or security risk. You can have different types of risk frameworks. Okay.
So maybe first we have to create this framework. Is it?
Correct. Actually, first you have to create entities. So what I did was yesterday I created these couple of entities. I created a company entity for Emphasis, and I created a few departments within Emphasis like physical security, IT security. Now I want to generate risks and manage risk at a department level. Okay, so I'll go ahead and then create my risk statements.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll start there. I will, let's say I will create a new risk framework. And sorry about that. Okay, so I'll just add my initials here, and the same thing you should do when you are doing the Sorry guys, I had to lock out my kids. Okay.
No problem.
So the first step is we will create, let's say I want to start testing operational risks. Okay. And basically these are just a small description I have here. Risks that arise from inadequate or failed internal processes, and I submit here. Okay, so I just created another one. This one is which you just created a framework. Now, once I submit the framework, there will be these related tabs which were not there in the first time when I opened the form. These tabs were not there. They will only appear after we submit the form, which means here I can associate entities with this particular risk framework, and I can associate existing risk statements, or I can create a new risk statements. Okay, so let's say I want to create a new risk statement, and this risk statement is part of the operational risk, and let's say we want to conduct a risk for all our departments, and it's related to compromise of applications due to vulnerability exploitation. Okay, just one example, and I'm creating a risk statement. Now, what is the difference between a risk statement and a risk? A risk statement is associated with an entity type. So let me complete this, and I will associate this risk statement with a risk assessment template. Now, this is the survey template, which you have one of your requirements, right? We should be able to send out surveys. Basically, in ServiceNow, the survey is defined as an assessment. So we can manage different types of risk assessment templates, and I can associate risk assessment templates with the risk which I am creating. Okay, so I have a sample template which I have created. So let me associate that with this risk, and we will look at that template once we run the risk assessment. Okay. One tip, if you right click on the header bar, you will be able to save the form. Okay, a navigation feature. Okay. So in many places in my document, I just written save the form. For that, right click and then save. Okay, because here you are only seeing an update. Yeah, the difference is if I click on update, it will exit the form. You know, it went back to the framework form. I was in the risk statement form. Whereas if I right click and save, it will remain on the form. Okay, it's like control, it's like save and exit. which is this update is save and exit.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Now I want to associate this risk with my departments, because my departments are like IT security department or physical security department. So I will select the entity type. And let's say I select department. Okay, so what happened now, there are two risks created for the two departments, finance and customer support. Okay, so I had selected departments as the entity type. So depending on how many departments are there and which there are category operational, and you have two operational risks which have been created with the same name. The name remains the same, but now this risk is associated with a specific entity. Okay, so this is how we associate, and now these two risks will appear in my risk register. So if I go back to my risk register here, I go to all risks. Okay, so these risks have been created now. Yeah, actually it's more than two. It's yeah, we have 8 or 10 departments, right? So for all 8 or 10 departments, these 10 risks have been created. So how do you populate the risk register? That was one of our requirements. How do I update my risks in the risk register? You have to first create an entity. You have to have the mapping of entity type to the risk statement. And once you do the mapping, risk will be automatically updated for every entity in that entity type.
Okay, so if we wanted to map that risk only to one team, for example, physical security, so how we would proceed with that?
Yeah, you can do that. In that case, what you have to do is, in the risk statement, you do not add an entity type. You directly add the additional entity. So there is a tab here called additional entities. So you can directly add that specific entity. For example, I only want to do it for physical security. Then I just add that relationship manually with one individual entity.
Okay.
Okay. But this is already added. It was already added as part of my, so it ignored it. We already had physical security. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so this is how we generate the or create the risks in the risk management.
So I have one query here.
Yes.
Once we have added all the departments,
Yeah.
and further we want to just remove some of the department, is it possible? Like here, 8 or 10 department got.
Yeah, from this risk statement only, right? Just these risks
Yes.
for the department. Yeah, it's definitely possible, as long as the risk right now it's just draft state. So you can just go in and delete the, let's say you don't want for these 3 departments, you can delete these risks from the register. Because right now it will allow, because it's just a draft risk. There is no score, there has no been there, it's not even entered the workflow yet. Yeah, okay. But once you have initiated the risk, let's say I'll go into the risk now, and I'll initiate the risk lifecycle. This is the risk lifecycle: draft, assess, respond, review, monitor, retire. Now, suppose I already moved to the assess phase, then obviously it makes good sense, best practice to not delete it. Rather, you just either you cancel it or you retire it or move it through certain stage so that you have a proper log of what was done.
Yeah, that's fine. Actually, if you have started, mean it was required, and after that you come to know that it's not required. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so now I have opened this risk, but this risk for this physical security entity. So let's say I want to conduct this risk assessment, compromise of applications, due to vulnerability exploitation for the entity physical security. Okay, and let's say I'll change the owner to myself so that I receive the assessment. So automatically, as soon as I added the owner to my name, the assessment respondents, my name was automatically added. So risk assessment template. Remember when we created the risk statement, we associated the risk assessment template. So that risk assessment template will be used for carrying out the assessment, and the assessments or the survey will go out to these users. Now here you can add additional users. Suppose I want to add Narayan. I can do that, and I can remove David. Okay, so you can add and remove multiple users from this list. So this is where you manage your survey respondents. And I can create some conditions also here, like don't show me people from a specific group, or show me people from a single specific group. Those kind of conditions can be added in this search field. Of course, that is configuration to be done during the implementation.
So,
okay.
One question here. So, will we be able to see only those users who are given a specific role, or it would be anybody who is in our organization?
Yeah, so out of the box, it's anybody. Right now, I have 634 users in my ServiceNow instance. I can see all users. But of course, when we do the implementation and we'll review the requirements with you for every field level, right? When we do the workshops before the implementation, like, do you want me to put any qualifier on this particular search field that only show me users who have the audit role, or only show me users who are part of the audit group or the risk group? Then we will have to add it. By default, it's open. Like, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So what I understood is we may have to add the team members or the respondents, as you say, like first in this ServiceNow tool and align them a role, and then we can add them.
Correct. So different organizations do it differently. Some they always, if for a particular category of risk, let's say operational risk, they have some default respondents. They tell us, okay, Sachin, just write a rule, a business rule. Every time category is operational, there should be 5 respondents who should be there in this list by default. Then I'll configure it. So depends completely on your requirements. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So just to add,
yes.
Basically, a lot of stuff can be automated. So if your structures are clear, right, what Antariksh just mentioned, right, that you know that, okay, these risks need to be given only to this physical security department, then automatically a business rule can be created where that happens by default. You don't have to manually do anything. Secondly, you can integrate it with your Active Directory. So all your users can be populated from there. So a lot of automation around that can be easily built.
Okay.
Okay, so the next tab is scoring tab. Now, what is this? This is where we define for this risk. This is a potential risk, still a draft state, right? We are still trying to just submit this for assessment. So me as the owner of this risk, I'm submitting certain potential loss expectancy. So let's say if this risk occurs, we have a loss expected like $1 million, which may occur in the next 3 financial periods, something like that. And I can have a residual risk that if we do a mitigation, this will come down, and it will not appear, or maybe it will appear once a year, something like that. So this is my expectation as an owner or someone who is submitting the risk, like what is the inherent SLE and what is the residual SLE. Then there is something called calculated. This is updated based on the assessment which will be done. So we have assessment questions. We also have linkages of risk to controls. And when we will do the control testing, then also we'll see how this calculated ALE will be impacted. Okay. So the risk scoring.
Any questions on this?
The scoring is little new to us. Maybe we'll see how, or will it be useful in any other field or interrelated to any other attribute of this control?
So calculated ALE, like for example, the single loss expectancy is something that you said. So simple example is, if there is an application, right? For example, the risk that we are discussing here, right? Compromise of application due to vulnerability exploitation. If that application belongs to a critical business function, right, then accordingly your single loss expectancy will be higher, and the annual rate of occurrence, which is your ARO, that multiplied by SLE typically gives you the ALE, which is the annual loss expectancy. So it's a very good way of creating your heat maps. So this goes automatically into creating your risk heat map. So where then it gives you a mechanism where you can focus on your very high and high risk.
Okay. So will it be only in terms of monetary outcomes, or it could be number instance as well?
So it can also be your our 5-step grading, which is your critical. That's what you're talking about, right? Critical, high, medium, low, very low, right? So that is also possible. So it's completely depending on. So if you are doing a qualitative risk assessment today, then we can start with the qualitative risk assessment. And once your processes mature a little bit, you can always decide whether you want to go to the quantitative or not.
Okay. So Narayanan, the question is, for scoring, we already have a scoring methodology as a company. Can this be aligned to that, or we have to follow this one only?
No, of course it can be aligned. So this is just what is out of the box. So if you already use quantitative risk assessment methodology, ultimately it's called probability into impact only, right? It's just that what mechanism you have to capture those inputs. So that can be very well modeled here.
Okay.
Ankur, anything you were referring to, or US? I heard, so I thought, let me check.
Yes, I'm just looking that in information security risk assessment, we are. So what I'm saying, in information security risk assessment, we are using CIA, asset value, and threats, vulnerability, and all that thing. Can that be come into this page? Where can be assigned the asset value,
that can be,
confidentiality, integrity, and availability value to that?
Correct. It can come from. You can take that. That can be that we can do during the setup time. So when we do the platform deployment, that is when we, depending on how you are assessing your risks, that mechanism can be customized accordingly.
Yeah, I think, Anko, you're talking about indicators. So we do have something called risk indicators, which can be configured to pull data from, let's say, incidents database or vulnerabilities database, and based on that that data, your risk score will be updated. Yeah, so that is the indicator functionality we'll have to start.
Okay. Because right now in emphasis we are not doing the quantitative risk assessment. We are doing the qualitative risk assessment. So giving the dollar value to each and every thing, it is not a practical thing right in the current scenario. We have to make our people aware about how to calculate these values and all that thing. So that's why I'm just looking the.
Okay. So we'll
show you. You are true. Sorry. So absolutely, Ankur. In fact, if you look at organizations, right, they always their maturity generally would be around qualitative. and then from qualitative you move to quantitative, because it takes a lot of engagement and awareness with users to mature them to quantitative.
Yeah, sorry, I think
correct. I
lost
think
one.
someone has presenting something.
Yeah, let me share again. Maybe someone accidentally clicked.
Antrish, can you
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, Sachin, now.
Okay. So the next step which I wanted to show is as part of the risk creation, we will add a control, associate a control with a risk. Now, this is the risk to control mapping. Okay. So there is a control tab. Now, obviously, this is independent of the risk assessment itself. I can, even at this stage, I can proceed to assess, and it will trigger an assessment. It will send a survey to this respondent. But I want to show how to associate a control with a risk. So to do that, we have these tabs, the bottom tabs on the form, indicators, tasks, controls, upstream risk, downstream risk, assessments, right? Risk response task, issues. So the one of the tabs is controls. So there are two ways. One is I can associate an existing control with this risk. Now, when I talk about policy and compliance management later, when we will show you the policy and compliance management, again, the same method, the control objectives are linked with entity types. Okay. So when I say choose control to associate, I will be able to associate controls which are already associated with this entity, physical security. Okay. So I may have an existing policy, which is my vulnerability response management policy. And within that policy, I may already have a control here, which is called reduce vulnerability exposure. This one, right? You can see reduce vulnerability exposure of application. So this control is already defined, which has its definition defined in the controls database. So all I can do is associate this control and I'll add that to this risk. And I can do a one-to-many mapping. I can map as many controls as I want. I can add one more. Let's say I want to add one manually. So one is I pulled from the policy database. One is I will add myself. So a control, when I click on new, this opens the control form. Now the control itself has its life cycle. This we will look at later, but it's draft, attest, review, monitor, and retire. Okay. So let's say I want to create a control called mitigate data collection breaches, and this is for today's demo. And again, entity, I will select the same, physical security. Okay. Now, this particular control I am directly creating without going through a control objective. Later, the other control which I added, that one is coming through a control objective, which means it will have reference to the corresponding objective record. This one we don't need. I'll just add myself as the owner. I'll add enforcement, mandatory, category is operational, type is related to vulnerability, security. Okay, classification, frequency. So these are some of the options which are available. Now in ServiceNow, these forms are very configurable. Okay, suppose during our workshop, you say, Sachin, I want additional options in this list. It's very easy. I can add additional choice values. Or if you want to say, I don't even need this form field, just hide it, then we can hide it for you. Or we can add additional form fields, which can be different types. It can be a choice. It can be a reference field like this, right? Or it can be like a text box. Different types of fields can be added or removed. And that is the configurability of the platform itself. Okay. So let's
types or categories has to be created at the beginning stage. Is it
at the beginning? Yeah, and you can add later also. later your system admin, once they are trained, suppose your system admin, once you have got training in ServiceNow or the admin training, you can add your own small changes yourself also. It's a very simple step, and ServiceNow teaches that during the system admin training. Like, for example, configure choices. You just go there, add additional choice value. Okay, so those kind of things the system admin can update later.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and then let's say I have attached SOPs for this control, which means whoever is carrying out this control test, they have to follow these SOPs, and you can add them as an attachment. Just click on the attachment, and any type of file can be attached in ServiceNow. It can be Word document, PDF, PPT, or okay, and so that's one option. And let's go down further. So just like in risk, we have a risk assessment. In control, we call it control attestation. So control attestation is basically whoever has, is creating the control, they will receive a short survey or a questionnaire asking for evidence, like, for this particular control. Right, so there will be a template of those questions, like what type of questions you want to ask. So that template is again managed as an attestation template. So I can have different types of templates for different types of controls. One sample attestation I have, so I'll use that. Since I added myself as owner, I'm already the attestation respondent here. So when I proceed to attestation, I will receive a questionnaire asking me to certain questions based on this template. Only after that, this control will move to the review stage. Okay, so I'll proceed to submit this control, and now it goes back to the risk form. So this risk which we created, now it has two controls associated with it. One is the control which we manually created, mitigate data collection, and one was the control which is referring to the policy. Okay, so this kind of starting point of your risk control mapping and managing the risk control matrix. Any questions so far?
Sachin, so the owners which we are seeing now, so these are the ones who will provide response, like will it be the physical security team or the one who has created it? It's showing those.
These are the control owners, the ones who have created the controls.
Okay.
Yeah, the assessment respondents are the auditees. You call them auditees,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Auditees are the assessment respondents, which will be added here in this tab. Assessment respondent here, and the attestation respondent in the other field. Yeah.
That's why. So I saw your name there as well, so I got little.
Yeah, this one I'm adding so that I can show you the assessment, because
okay.
Otherwise I'll have to log in as a different user and show it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, now let me get into the actual testing of the control. I'll show you how to create a test plan, and that is actually in ServiceNow part of audit engagement. So we have seen risk. Now let me show you quickly getting into the audit application. Once you open the audit application, you have something called engagements, right? So you have a list of engagements. So let's say I want to create a new engagement. Actually, even before creating engagement, I have to create a test plan for the control. So further down in audit module, I have a sub-module called audit testing, this one. Okay, so this is where I can manage and maintain the test plan. Now, test plan are associated with a control. Okay, so we have one test plan for one control, right? For one entity. So basically, there will be every test plan I'll have to create for a control and for an entity, and then I'll have to call this test plan in the engagement, so that when the engagement starts, this control test is generated and tasks are assigned to the auditors. Okay, so let's say I want to create a new test plan here. So the control is the one which we just created just now. It was having the keyword SK4, I believe. Yeah. So just if I put a star and search, you know, we will be able to search for anywhere in the line, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. What is a test template? Test templates are like predefined. Suppose I don't think I have a test template here. Yeah, I don't have. But basically, what test template does is, as soon as I select a test template, it will populate these fields: design expectation, design assessment, operation expectation, operation assessment. These are basically test of design, test of assessment. The two: test of design and test of effectiveness. This is the test of design. This is the test of effectiveness. So you may just save certain templates so that you don't have to repeat, you don't have to type it every time. So that's the purpose of having a test template. Okay. So let's say I want to create a test of design and effectiveness for physical security. Okay. And design expectation, I'm just adding some text here. So the expectation is that control is able to satisfy the control definition, the control objective, and the procedure was evaluate the data which was provided. Similarly, for operation test, you can say evaluate if the control is designed as per the policy or SOP. And you can have certain steps to manage. I mean, I'm just entering some sample data because these are mandatory. As you can see, we have to enter this. So when the control test is generated, the user has to follow these assessment procedures and then give us a result, like what is the outcome of this test. Okay. And we can provide some expected duration, like this type of control testing should take, let's say, 2 days. Okay, so this is how we create a test plan. Now, this test plan can be associated with multiple audit engagements. Every time there is an audit which requires an audit of this control, this test plan can be called upon. Okay.
Okay.
So it's mostly just once you have to define for every control. Okay, so I just created this test plan numbers 20009, and this is the control with which it is associated. Okay, so once we do that, then we can go ahead and create a new engagement. So let's say I click on this create new. So this is the audit engagement lifecycle. So again, I will just enter my initials and I'll say physical security ops risk audit. So this is the auditor now in this case, right? You can assign this audit engagement to an individual who must have access to the audit application. At the same time, you can add additional auditors here. So I just click on this button called add me, and it will add myself. And you can also define who are the approvers. Again, I can click just for the purpose of the demo, I'm just adding myself. Obviously, the approver has to be someone. So same is just you unlock this and you can search for the users and you can add them. Okay.
This approver is, can I say maybe a one level up of the auditor, like?
Can be. You can define it like say approver has to be a department manager only. Then we only show you the list of department managers. Or you want to automate this, like if I select Sachin as the auditor, then Narayan should be the approver. Because in the system, Sachin's department manager in my user profile is Narayan, let's say. Then we can auto-populate it also. So we can create those rules. Those are business rules. Okay. Then we can define what is the start date. Let's say today, and maybe it will take
Sachin?
a couple of weeks. Yes.
Hi, this is Ranjani here. So not at all times would we have a department manager or a direct correlation as per AD coming into play when they are doing the review. So would you have roles clearly defined saying the audit manager, say it might be one of our peers themselves, but they would be assigned as an audit manager for a particular assignment. So would we be able to define roles here and assign people to those roles?
Right. So you must have a group. Let's say you want to have a group of users who are audit managers. Okay. Then I can restrict this search field to only that group members. You will be able to select users from that group. Right?
Okay.
Is that what you're asking? Yeah. So it can be based on group. It can be based on role. It can be based on the relationship in the AD. Yeah, depending how you want it. It's all configurable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Out of the box, it's open. If I search, I can see all my 600 employees here. But we can add additional constraints, like so that only people who are approver role, for example, should be able to be added in this field, or who are part of the audit management group should be part of this. We can do that, not a problem. Okay, so this is, we have created audit start date and end date. And right now it's in the scoping stage, which means this is the audit lifecycle: scope, validate, field work, awaiting approval, follow up, and close. So right now I'm just trying to scope up the audit engagement. So let's save this form. So as you can see right now, I only see the top tabs. I don't see the bottom tabs. So once I save, I'll see the bottom tabs. Save. Okay, and there you are. So we have a bottom tabs here now: entities, risk, controls, test plans. So these are all interrelated with entities. So let's say I want this audit for physical security only, right? So I'll just add, and I associate physical security entity with this audit engagement. Okay, so all the risks, controls, and test plans which are associated with this entity will come up here once I move to the validate state. Okay, so I'll click on validate. So the process has moved to the next level from scope to validate. And you can see 7 risks, 7 controls, and 1 test plan. These are what we have defined currently, which are open for this entity. So the auditor can then immediately know like what all risk assessments have been done for this entity, what all controls have been attested for this entity. And if there's any test plan, then we can generate tests, and the auditor can then run those tests. So right now I only have 1 test plan, but obviously if I have 7 controls, I'll probably have 7 test plans here, and I can generate the control tests and run those tests as part of the audit engagement. So this is the control testing piece. The control testing is done here.
Any questions so far?
So what I understand that, like while creating an audit, now we are adding a controls that has to be tested during that audit.
Correct. So even if there is no audit, and let us say that there is a new risk that is identified, and for mitigating that new risk, you need to associate it with controls. And for the first time, when you associate it with controls, you need to do the test of design and test of effectiveness, right? And post that, there has to be a regular test of those controls. Even that testing gets done as part of this engagement. So it can be an audit, it can also be an assessment. So both of them get triggered via these engagements.
Okay.
I have query here that when we associated with the physical security, the multiple controls auto-populated. Suppose my requirement is only to select 4 or 3 control to check, not the all. Is it possible, or all are mandatory? All would be the mandatory.
No, it's
So
possible. Definitely, right now I am only testing one of the controls. Right now, I don't even have test plans. But even if I have 7 test plans, I can select which test plan I will take for my control testing for this engagement. So I can select 4 out of 7, or 3 out of 7, or 1 out of 7. That's fine.
Okay.
So we have to select and then generate the controls. Yeah.
Sorry. In fact, as part of your periodicity, right, there will be a control which you would want to test only once a quarter. Some you want to test once a month, right? Some you want to test once in 6 months. So all that can be set up accordingly. So depending on that, you can do a scheduling, because we don't test all controls at all times, right? For all assessments, depending on the criticality of that business function and the risk impact, we can decide how frequently we want to assess the control effectiveness of that particular risk. So that is completely possible. Any further questions on that?
No, this is fine.
Okay, Nankur.
Yes.
Sachin, can we create a group of risk or group of control for particular activity, like for PCI DSS, HIPAA, or for other certain regulations and all?
Yes, absolutely. I'll show you when we look at the policy and compliance management. Like for different regulations, we can associate the regulations with control objectives. And in fact, there can be a single control which can be associated with multiple regulations. Because you may have common control tests, right? You may have tests which are similar in nature and which will satisfy compliance to multiple. So we'll look at that. Yeah.
Okay. And can it also be possible that if I receive one new project in my organization and I want to assess that for PCI DSS or HIPAA particularly, so I can just assign that engagement, like PCI DSS engagement for that particular project, assign the owners and everything, and the project will be assessed only for that particular controls, group of controls and all?
Yes, so we can define what group of controls we want to test. But whatever scoring is done, that will roll up to all the citations. So let me show you. So we have a control objectives here inside policy and procedure. Okay. So let's say I have this control objective called establish and maintain emergency change procedure. This is referring to a particular regulation. In this case, it is referring to COVID. Okay.
Okay.
This may also refer to another similar regulation in ISO or in PCI. Right. So, but whatever compliance we are getting for the controls in this, so all these statuses we are getting: non-compliant, compliant, non-compliant. Right. So our retail division is compliant on this control. Now this control score overall is flowing into the overall policy or the regulation compliance score in your dashboard as well. Like how many policies what is the compliance score for different policies or different, like PCI, what is the compliance, or COVID, what is the compliance, those kind of things.
So just to add there, what Sachin is trying to say is, yes, you can create a specific engagement for assessing PCI DSS compliance for a particular product, for a project. You just just map that project to that particular entity, right? And you create an engagement where you only select the PCI DSS controls, and you run the assessment. And you will get a compliance against PCI DSS for that project. What Sachin is saying is, now apart from these, let us say controls such as Micker and Checker, or password policy. The password policy is a basic control which is across all standards, right? So when you do the assessment of these controls, let us say a password policy control for this PCI DSS engagement, whatever results you record against the effectiveness of that control, that will also get reflected across. That's the point he's trying to make. So it will also get reflected in every other policy or control objective that has got password policy as one of the control statements. Because the whole idea of aggregating this is you don't have to run multiple assessments of that control in silos. So that control, that department, if you're doing it for PCI DSS, and that control for that department is also required as part of ISO, that also gets updated. So you run the control once, you do the audit once, and you can actually report the compliance from the perspective of multiple standards.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Narayan. So
Sure.
if I go to the controls which we just created, let's say I go to controls. This is another personalization. You can add or remove columns as per your own need. Just click on this gear icon. Okay, added the updated column. Okay, so this is the control I just added. Right now it's still in draft state. So let me move it to the monitor state first, or the review state. Okay, so what I'll do is, for this particular control can be part of a control objective. The control objective is linked to the corresponding citations in a policy or in a standard. So let's say I'll click on a test. So it's created one attestation, which means one attestation for this control will go to the attestation respondent. Okay. Now, since I am the attestation respondent, I click on my attestations. And of course, there will be notifications in the system, which will be going out to the users, like email notification that a new attestation has been received, or a new assessment has been sent to you, or a new task has been assigned to you. I'll show you some notifications later. So this is the attestation which I just received for this entity, physical security. So I'll click on take assessment here. And it opens the form. So this is based on the template. So my attestation template is very simple. Is the control implemented, yes or no? And explain. If you say yes, then you have to attach an evidence which is mandatory. So depending on what you select in the first answer, the second question will hide or show itself. And this is configurable. So let's say I just say yes, and I attach the evidence. Because it's mandatory, I have to select a file. Let's submit. So this completes the attestation part. So whoever was the respondent has actually just submitted a control attestation, and the control itself will move to the next stage, which is the review stage. So now the control is in review state. Okay. Right now we don't have any control tests which were run on it, so it's still showing me as compliant as the status. Now let's go back to the audit engagement which we created and run the control test for this control, and then we will come back here and we'll see that the status will move to effective or ineffective or non-compliant depending on what we do in our control testing, right? So this particular test, remember there was this test, and we added this test to our audit engagement. So I can go back to my audit engagement. This was the engagement, physical security ops risk audit. Wow, why I see so many squares here? Something not right. Form is not loading properly. Let me refresh. This is the first time I've seen any kind of this kind of form loading issue. But it's still working. Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Sachin.
Yes.
Sorry, I lost the network. So, yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Sachin.
Okay. Okay, so now that this control is in the review stage, I can proceed to, update the status of the control by generating control test and by running the control test. So I'll proceed to generate control tests. So when I click on generate control tests, you get this message, control tests have been generated. And if I scroll down, you will see audit tasks have been created. So what are audit tasks? As part of the audit engagement, we have different tasks, right? And you can create your own ad hoc tasks as well, whoever is the engagement manager. So depending on the controls which have to be tested, control tasks testing tasks are created, which can be assigned to different team members within your audit team. Okay, so the engagement manager can proceed to assign this control test to one of the team members. So I open the control test. I click on the control test number. It opens the control test form or the audit form, task form, and I'll assign it to myself, and I'll start work on this task. So there is a state. The task itself has its own life cycle. So open, work in progress, review, close. So let's say I will start work on this. Okay, and maybe I'll say, okay, this task will take 2 days. Why 2 days? Because in my test plan, I had added 2 days. The recommended duration of the test is 2 days. So that's populated here. And we can configure notifications, like if there are overdue tasks which have not been completed by the plan end date, those kind of things we can configure. So once I save, the actual start date will update because I click on work in progress. So whatever is my date and time, when I click on work in progress, that will be captured in the actual start date. And once I close, the actual end date will be added and the actual duration. So you have a full visibility of which team member took how much time to complete which task, what are the different activities. So one thing, again, a general feature across the platform, any form in ServiceNow, you will see this tab called Activity Journal. This is where you will see the case log, the activity history of that record of this form. So this one is for the task form, right? This task was open and it was moved to work in progress at this time. So we have a timestamp which cannot be changed. This is non-editable. So every time there's a field change, every time there's a comment which is added, it's all captured in the activity screen. Okay, this also helps in collaboration between team members. Suppose I am working on this and I have another team member from my team who I would like to be, notified of a comment or, something like that. This is true not just for this audit task. This can be done in the engagement level. It can also be done in the risk or compliance. So this kind of platform feature is very helpful when you're actually working on these. Okay. And audit manager one will receive a notification, or they will see a small, a pop-up right here that you have a new message, and they will be able to click on that message and it will take them to this form. So it's kind of very user-friendly that way. Okay, so coming back to the test itself, there are two tabs, design test and operation test. So this is based on the plan which we did. In the plan, we had added design expectation and procedure, right? So we have to add the result here. Whoever is doing the control testing will just say whether this is effective or ineffective from a design point of view. So let's say it's effective from a design point of view. But maybe as part of our testing, we found out it's ineffective from an operation point of view. Okay, maybe the the control is SOPs are not followed. Let's say. Okay, so as soon as I put one of the design test or operation test is ineffective, my control will become non-compliant because one of the tests failed. Okay, so let's do that, and I will proceed to move this to the next stage, which is review, which means the audit manager, the engagement manager will review this task. So I'll click on review and I will click on update. Okay, so you can see the updated the control status from compliant to non-compliant. Okay, and the task itself is completed. Okay, so actually I didn't move the field work. Right. So fieldwork is when the actual tasks are carried out. So at an engagement level, we can move the engagement to fieldwork. Then the tasks are carried out. Once the engagement tasks have been completed, which means all the control tests are done, then we proceed to request approval at an engagement level. So you click on request approval and it will move to the next stage. Any questions? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. Yeah. Any questions so far?
No, not on this.
Okay, cool. So we did one control testing for this particular control. Now let's take a look at what's the status of our risk there, which we had created. So I go back to the risk. So you see one of the control tests was failed. So the status has become non-compliant here. Okay. And when this has become non-compliant, it will have an impact on the control compliance percentage and non-compliance percentage. So there are certain factors which we can configure as part of the risk scoring. Like if there are any associated controls which are non-compliant status, what should be the impact on the risk? And it will flow into your risk impact score, overall risk impact score in your risk heat map. Okay, so because we just did one control test and we marked it as non-compliant, one of the tests failed, our risk percentage has fallen down to 50% overall. Okay, so this will also flow into your overall scoring, the 1 to 5 rating. Okay, now let's look at the qualitative risk assessment. So I will move this risk to the assess stage. I will click on the assess button. And when I click on the assess button, the stage moves from draft to assess and one assessment is created. So what will happen? The assessment respondent will receive a survey. So they will receive an email notification and they can directly click on the email notification or they can go to my assessments and they will see the assessment which has been assigned to them. So there is a due date. So definitely we can add reminders. We can add escalation rules if people are not responding, things like that. Click on take assessment. And this opens the risk assessment form. Now, this one is the sample form which we had added. So there are two parts of it. One is inherent risk and the second is residual risk. So we have qualitative questions here, like what is the potential reputational impact if this risk occurs, like maybe it's high, financial risk high, employee productivity moderate, health and safety moderate, legal and financial high. Okay. Similarly, what is the expected frequency? Let's say more than once per year. But if we do something about it, maybe we create some risk response, maybe some mitigating activities, then it will, these parameters should come down. So we just select. This is one of the type of questions. You can have radio buttons, you can have choices, you can have different types of questionnaires which you can create and provide. Depending on what is your risk scoring methodology, we can configure this. And I proceed to submit. So once all the respondents have completed their assessments, the overall risk assessment score will be again impacted based on the total, the response which came in. So now the risk has moved from assess to respond. Okay, so a new tab has come up here. Earlier we only had 4 tabs here. The response tab just showed up because it's only visible at the response stage. So the risk owner will receive notification that all your assessors have responded, and you can go in and view the assessment responses here. Click on the assessments. There can be like 10 assessments here, 10 different surveys. You can view who added what, who answered what question. You can view that here. So read-only view of the same form. And you can then decide what to do. So that's basically the response. What is it which you will do with this risk? Do you want to accept the risk, avoid, mitigate, transfer? And again, there's a workflow behind every action which you would like to take. Suppose I say I want to mitigate this risk, okay? And then there has to be a risk mitigation plan. There has to be justification for the mitigation and what are the steps to mitigate this risk. So there can be potentially three different tasks. The first task will be create a risk mitigation plan or submit a risk mitigation plan. Okay, you are telling me you are going to mitigate this. What is your risk mitigation plan for this? Okay, and then provide me actual steps on how you will do it. So let's say I click on mitigate and I update. A risk response task is created. Scroll down again. The related list, the bottom tabs are very useful. Okay, so I see there's a risk response task, one risk response task which has been generated, and this is a mitigation task. Okay, and the task's description is provide a risk mitigation plan. Because I want to mitigate the risk, what is your plan? Okay. So again, it's just like the task. It's draft, work in progress, review. Just like we had an audit task, remember, this is a risk mitigation task. So ServiceNow, basically workflows are all task driven. Everything which has to be worked upon. You have to have an assigned to user. You have to have some kind of stage, work in progress, completed, approved, reviewed. You have to have some methodology of collaboration, like adding comments, adding attachments, sending the form back and forth between different users. So that all kind of tasks in ServiceNow, they behave in a similar way. You see, this is the risk mitigation task. So right now it's draft. I can say, okay, it's by default assigned to myself. I can assign it to someone else and I can start work on this. So let's see if it's work in progress now. Okay, so let's say I'll provide a plan here, like update the SOP, continue to assess for the next 6 months. Okay, so this is my risk mitigation plan that I want to update the SOP for the physical security department for the particular risk control for this particular control. And I will go ahead and request review, which means the risk owner will get a notification that a risk mitigation task, which was submitted by one of your assignees, is now ready for review. Okay. Click on update. So the risk itself is now in the review stage, and there is an open risk assessment task, which is also in the review stage. Now, as the risk owner, I can decide, if I feel that the plan was not properly made, then I can ask them to reopen, or if I am happy with the plan, I can simply proceed to the next stage, which is monitor stage. Okay. So I click on monitor. So now this is the stage where most of our risks will be, unless we retire those risks, because we have created a risk, assessed a risk, we have created a risk response plan, and we have moved it to monitoring stage. right? Now, during monitoring also, you may have control testing, which is periodically, depending on the frequency of each of the controls associated with the risk. Once these controls are tested, which is part of your audit engagement, then your control status will be updated, which will flow into your overall compliance percentage at the monitoring stage for the risk, and your overall risk score, which will show on your risk heat map. Okay, let me show you the heat map. It looks something like this. Sorry, risk. I'm not sure if it loads. It loads. Okay. So there is an impact on the y-axis and likelihood on the x-axis. Impact versus likelihood for different risks which are there in the organization. And of course, I can click on any element of it. It will open the underlying data. For example, I want to see very high impact, extremely likely risks. I click on it. There are two risks which are very high impact and extremely likely based on whatever assessment was done, based on the control attestation, based on the response tasks. Okay, so this is based on the risk scoring methodology which you have. We can then configure how risks will appear for you in the risk heat map.
Any questions on this? No comments, because I think the overall life cycle has been kind of covered.
So if we go a step back, so earlier we created a control, then we assigned it to one of the auditee, and then he has submitted that response. So post that there was a review stage, correct?
Correct.
So where we reviewed whatever the response was provided by the auditee, and then we said no, we either it was an accept, or then there were multiple options like mitigate, or so
Correct.
or there could be an option to us that the evidences which are submitted are not sufficient,
Right.
and we want the auditee, or we want to open that control again for the auditee to submit additional evidences. So how we can do that?
Right. So that's part of the risk. You can add additional tasks. So if I go back to the risk, at any stage, if you want to add additional response tasks, this was one response task which we created, right, which was based on the mitigation task. So at any point, you can again open it. Let's say this one is closed, but unless, because I already moved to monitor, but suppose you were not happy with the response, you can reopen the task, and you have to ask them to resubmit.
Correct.
Yeah, the response.
So so how in this workflow we can do that?
Let me.
Probably you can get it back, Sachin. You can probably move it one stage back and.
Yeah, I can show you another. Okay, let me open another of the risks here. Click on assess. assessments. Take assessment. Okay, so suppose I create a risk mitigate task here. Click on update. A risk response task is created. Okay, in this risk response task, once the assignee provides their details, and they can add some attachment here, and they will request a review of the audit of your risk team, right? Now, as a risk manager, right now this is review stage. So as a risk manager, you can move this back to draft, because basically you will get a notification that a task has been completed and evidence has been submitted by the respondent. And so when you scroll down, you look at the details which is provided in this, and you can choose to move this back to draft here. You know, as a risk manager, you can do it, not the assigned to user, but as a risk manager, you will click on back to draft, which means you want them to, and you can add details here that please provide more information. Move it back to draft. Okay, so you can do that, keep doing that back and forth as long as, so once again they provide the input, they will again click on submit for review. And you review and you can move it back to draft. So it can go on unless you are satisfied with that.
So, and we will have the log of these.
You will have the log of these, like when audit moves to review, then what comments did you provide, then you moved it back to draft, what comments you provided. Of course, comments is one thing which has to be like as a best practice, just add as much as details so that it's all logged here in the activities.
Or we can make it a mandatory field so that without that,
We
either
can make comments mandatory. Every time they click on review, we can say that please add comments, without which they will not be able to proceed. We can do that, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So this was one instance of that.
Yeah.
If I say like the second part, like the auditee has submitted the evidence and like that was a failure. The means it was a periodic. For example, we wanted the Windows security patches to be published, to be installed on all the systems, and we have asked them a report as an evidence for that control. So when we received that for previous month, there were 2 systems, those were not updated with latest patches as per the report they have submitted. So now what will be the outcome of that test is the control will be failed because requirement was 100% system should be updated with latest patches.
Yes.
So now we want them to give an ask the auditee what was the root cause of these 2 systems not being updated with the patches, and also submit the corrective actions that you have taken, and also the preventive actions that you will ensure this is not happening in future again.
Correct. So that's the part of the policy and compliance. Yeah, sorry, there was another question.
No, I guess.
Okay, so let me show that life cycle to you. That is the control testing, and then if the control fails, then what is the how you manage issues and remediations. Okay, so basically this is part of control. So I go to all controls and I This was a control, let's say I was supposed to review.
So will we be able to take the same example on which we were discussing?
Yes. So let me show you the same example. Actually, this was the control which we tested, right? Test of design and effectiveness. This was the control which we were testing.
Okay.
Yeah, so the control was ineffective here.
Okay.
But we didn't move this control to monitor. It's still in review. It's not in monitor. So I have to put it in monitor.
So the auditor will move this from review stage to monitor.
Yeah, the control owner moves it from review to monitor. And when the control testing is done, it's actually done when for all the controls which are in monitor stage, right? So the control lifecycle, someone created the controls, then the controls were attested. That was the one-time attestation which we did, right? The attestation respondent provided an evidence that the control has been implemented. That was the attestation. Then the control owner does a review that yes, that whatever evidence has been provided is correct, and they move the control to monitor stage. Okay. Now, when the control is in monitor stage, then the control testing is done. So test plan can be added, control test can be created as part of our audit engagement. Okay. So what we did was in our audit engagement, this was not in monitor stage. That's why the issue was not created. Had it been in monitor stage, as soon as the control was ineffective, an issue should have been automatically created. That this test has failed, please look into it. That issue will be created. So let me show you how issues work. I will go back to the control testing. Let me do a test once again for the same control. So go to audit, engagements. Let me try if it will generate the control test again because we already did once. Yeah, control has already generated. So I'll have to create another. Okay, do it quickly. So you understand why it was not created previously, because it was not in the monitor stage. So I'll just try to quickly show it to you now that we have put it in the monitor stage. Validate. Okay, I have a test plan. So generate control tests. Okay, so now I should have audit tasks here. Go into the audit task. Okay, the control is ineffective, but issue is not created. Again, issue should have been created as soon as the control fails. The control test issue should appear here. Let me check why it's not coming. So basically what will should happen is an issue should be created as soon as the audit task is ineffective. Again, it's not creating, so it's something wrong with my control. Control is in monitor now. Even now, the issue is not created. But I can manually also assign issues. I can create issues with respect to a control and add an issue manually as well, which means test has failed, which means there has to be a task, like an issue has to be created and has to be worked upon. Let me quickly show you that. So I go back to this control and I go down to issues. So an issue was not created automatically, so let me create a new issue and show it to you. So basically an issue is like the control test failed because of control failure. And again, you can assign the issues to different team members who can work on those issues. Okay, and if it is associated with a control test, then these fields will automatically update, like which entity control.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just showing you because it's I'm creating it manually, right? And it's like any task. So again, there will be a plan start date and end date for this, and there will be a analysis phase, like someone will analyze the issue and then respond back. Yeah. So let's say I'll put it in analyze state. Okay, and I submit this. So now I have an open issue, which is actually, if it is auto-generated, you will already have a short description, issue created due to control test failure. Okay, so now you can assign the issue to, again, going back to the assignee who can then respond to this, like why this control test failed. Okay. So then we have something called recommendation, like after the analysis, right now we are in the analysis phase. During analysis, we'll identify some fix to this, right? Like what is recommended step. So we can say like, okay, monitor closely for next 3 weeks to check for similar occurrences, something like that. And we can update the state to respond, which means I've analyzed, I've added a recommendation, I'm moving this to respond. Now, again, the issue response can be of different types. And again, this is configurable. Do you want to remediate or do you want to accept the issue? If I click on remediate, it will create a remediation task, right? If I click on accept, it will say, okay, the issue is accepted, we move on. Okay, so that's how issues and remediation tasks are closely interrelated. So let's say I click on remediate and I just provide a description of the, like, what are the remediation activities we are going to do, and save the form. Then it will create a remediation task. I mean, we have to create a remediation task, which means my response is we will remediate, and I will add an explanation here. I can also add activity here, that adding remediation task. Now, suppose you want to automate a bit of it, depending on your organization's requirements, saying that, Sachin, as soon as I click on remediate, you automatically generate a remediation task for me. Yes, that can be done. Okay, this is the default, it doesn't do it, but yeah, it can be done.
So again, it will flow to the auditees.
It will flow to the. We can decide whom it goes to. Again,
Okay.
if I select response as remediate, then I'll create a remediation task. Suppose I select response as accept, then it is our side. Now I have to create a policy exception because we are accepting this issue. Then the policy, there has to be an exception, right? Then I can say, okay, accept, and then you just provide an explanation that accepted with a policy exception for this department. And then in that case, you have to go into the policy exception flow. Okay, so those are two options. If it's accept, you create an exception. If it's remediate, you create a remediation task. Okay, so let's say I want to create a remediation task. Then I will click on this remediation task and assign this task to anyone. I can assign it to the auditees or the department, someone in the department who has to provide some mechanism like how they will remediate this issue in their department going forward. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So will that flow back again to auditor?
It will. So once they respond to this remediation task, once they move to review, it will come back to your review. Okay. And then you have to then accept or reject or proceed to say that yes, this is okay. So there are quite a few interrelated workflows. Within control testing, you tested your control, you created issues, then you analyze the issue, you decide a response for the issue, then you create a remediation task, and then there is a workflow for the remediation task. Similarly, in the audit side, in the risk management side, the one we saw was a risk mitigation plan or risk acceptance plan or risk transfer plan that will have its own task, and someone will work on that task and complete that task. That is more for managing the risk. This is for managing the control issues. I think you were referring to more for the control test failure, right? Then it is this one. The issues, we have to work through issues, which is part of the controls application.
Okay.
Yeah.
So during this workflow, we also had one approver. So
that was the audit engagement. So overall audit engagement will be having a approver, right? So once all the audit activities are done, let's say all audit tasks are completed, we have done all the testing, then we can move to request approval. Click on request approval. Then this approver will receive a notification that there is an audit which is awaiting your approval. So you see the form has become read-only, which means approver will receive, will have to go to my audit approvals here. So whoever is approval will have to go here, my audit approvals.
Okay.
Yeah, and they will see that, okay, this is approval requested for this engagement. So they can go in and provide their comments and they can approve or reject. They can see what item they are approving. I should also have some emails for you here if I try to look at emails. Okay, so all these tasks have just came to me as different notifications. When audit task was assigned to me, I got that notification. A risk response task was assigned to me. Issue was assigned to me. Engagement approval request, which is the last one, right? So every type of notification can be configured. Again, it's again configurable. The notification text, the notification subject, the frequency, it's all configurable. So for example, this is an approval request notification. By default, it has, it looks something like this, but it is just, you can tell me during implementation, like you have a specific format for the emails which go out to the users, we can use those formats. But the email looks something like this, like click here to approve or click here to view the link in the system. And then they click there and it will take them to the system.
So here will the approval be able to see the what are the activities or the evidences?
They have to go into the system. So they have to click on the link in the email, and then it will take them back to the this link here. Basically, it's a link to this record, and they will open this. Okay, and they have this. What are they approving? They are approving this engagement, and they can see all the details of the engagement here. In fact, they can go down, drill down further to look at the details of the activities, which is the activity journal. They can see what all comments were given. They can even see what all tasks were worked upon. So all this access will be there for the approvers. Evidences will be there. Suppose you have a tab here called, which is very common request from a lot of our audit clients. There you have a tab here called audit evidences, like audit documents. Documents are there, like attachments. You will see on the top. As soon as I attach a file here, that file will appear on the top here. So all the attachments they will see here. But suppose some clients say, no, I want it in the list here. Then I can provide attachments list here also. Not a problem.
Okay.
Okay.
This will complete the flow of.
This will complete the flow of audit. Now there is one last step, which is generating the audit report. So there is a tab here called audit report. Okay. Actually, I should have added a result, like what is the final result of the audit before I moved for approval. So that I didn't update. That's why now it is read only. So in the report, basically, ServiceNow has an audit knowledge base. What is a knowledge base? In ServiceNow, we have what we call knowledge board, which is like a document repository. Okay. So I do have a knowledge base for audit as well, which can be managed, and you can give access to specific users, like who can have access to all the audit reports, for example. Okay, so how do we have our report published to this knowledge base? To do that, in our engagement, we can select which knowledge base our report should go to if we want it to be published to a knowledge base. So let's say I want it to be published on the audit knowledge base, and I can define audit report template. Okay, so I have a default template, which is a sample template, but you can define your own audit report template. Of course, it should pull data from this, like what all data is there, including the tasks, the issues, the controls, the list of controls, what tests were performed, who did what evidence was submitted. The data is all there, so you can define those templates, and yeah, that's it. So once you have that, we get a button called Generate Report. So we click on that, and it will. So this is the default template. It shows the name of the audit engagement, the description, the scope of work, the summary of issues, right? If there's any issue, what was the control test issue, what was the remediation task, what action was taken, everything will be appearing here. Then you can publish that. As soon as you publish, this report will be then available in the knowledge base. Of course, we can configure as a notification. If you say that, okay, as soon as I click on publish, or it should send out the report as an email to the audit owner or the audit manager, we can do that.
Or the group which we said, knowledge base.
Yeah.
That report.
They will receive a notification that a new report has been added to your audit knowledge base. We can receive, yeah, that is a very common notification, yes. So a new knowledge article, KB 10005, has been generated, which should now appear in our audit knowledge base here. It's here. So the report is published. So I think that covers most of the audit management and risk management. Even policy and compliance, we covered the control testing part. We covered how you carry out attestations. We also covered how issues are created and managed, and we covered remediation tasks. Now, one thing which I wanted to show you in policy and compliance was the authority documents and policy documentation. Can I proceed before, or do you? I'll take a pause if there are any question before I proceed to show you that.
But even we are nearing to our 5 p.m. deadline, so
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Sachin,
have
I have
anything?
No, actually, I have meeting from 5 o'clock, so
Okay.
I would not be able to continue this.
Okay.
So in that case, let's do one thing. So there's a good place to take a pause and stop, and we'll reconvene, right? So typically the reporting part is remaining. The UCF, or what we call a unified compliance framework mapping with standards, that part is remaining, and we'll talk about how the KRIs work, right? So that we can cover on, let us say, Monday is a good day, so you can digest something, you can digest these things, and you might have more follow-up questions. So we can cover the remaining part. We can, I think, policy exception, some parts Sachin explained, but whatever is remaining, then we can have a 2-hour slot on Monday if that works for everybody.
Okay. No, so what I was thinking, if we had these IDs available to us for testing, uh, then we would have gone ahead and done some hands-on, and maybe we are ready with our queries.
Sure. So I
Yeah.
think Sachin has anyway created the IDs.
We are ready with the handbooks. We can send them to you today itself. Yeah.
So Sachin, why don't you explain that in quick 5 minutes?
I'll show you one of the handbooks. Yeah, let me show you one of them, so that I'll just walk you through 2 minutes. I'll end at 5. Don't worry. So we have this type of a handbook, which is like one for risk management, one for policy, and one for audit management. Okay. Can you see my screen, Word document?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, we have given the scenario which you will be walking through, and we have given the URL and the username password for logging into the instance. Okay. Once you log in, we have given step by step, like go to this link, click on this link, review this document, then click on new button, open the form. So it's step by step we have given this. So this is the policy and compliance. Similarly, I have one for risk and one for audit management. So I can share this with you right now. So this one is how you can create a new control, how you can associate control with your control test plan. So this one, create a test plan, create a new test plan. Okay, initiate attestation. In the audit one, I have things like how do you create an audit engagement? How do you associate entities to audit engagement? How do you generate control tests? It's all here. So I think you can start going through that, and definitely you will have questions because you are not very familiar with the platform. But at least you give it one try and you note down your queries, and we can go through them in the next session. Is that okay?
Yeah. So, what do you think? Like, should we reconnect on Tuesday, like tomorrow, and day after, like on Monday? These 2 days we will do the testing. Ankur, even you can
I
pitch in
think
here,
we
right?
should take 1 or 2 days to look into this, and then we'll reconvene.
Sure, guys. No worries. So you let us know. So probably you go through it, and probably Monday you can tell us, when you want to do it, either Tuesday or, what works for you. Then we can fix up that slot.
Sure. So maybe like we'll release the other participants. Maybe Sachin, I can connect with you with respect to the ID creations and to get the download of that, and then pass on that message to the team, and they can start the testing.
Sure.
Perfect. So great. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. And we look forward to reconnecting again. Before we go, I think Sachin, your coordinates are there with Antariksh, right? Or do
Yeah,
you want to share it on the
if
chat?
you want to continue on the same bridge right now?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, we are dropping down now. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Sachin, I'll also drop
Thanks.
because I have another call
Yeah.
in 5.
Okay,
And then
Narayan.
we'll circle back. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Okay.
Chalo,
Thanks.
bye. Bye,
Thanks.
Antariksh. Bye.
Thanks, Narayan.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Thank you, team.
Thanks, Sachin. Thanks, Narayan. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Okay, Antariksh, we have created a few users.
Okay.
Let me show you.
So, like for the testing, or the complete thing, or one thing maybe, like what we want, and I'll not say we have missed, but like the calendarization.
Yeah, engagements. Yeah, I saw that requirement. So basically, calendar import feature is not there, but calendarization of the engagements in a sense that you can look at the plan start date and plan end date here in this view. And we can generate a calendar report out of this as long as the data is there. So we can definitely import Excel sheet. Suppose you have a list of engagements for which you know what is the plan start date, plan end date. Then I can create an import file for you, and you can import an Excel sheet. You can't import it. I don't know how calendar will be imported, but Excel you can import. Will that satisfy the requirement?
No, so our requirement was, so let me tell you, like today we had a bunch of at least 3 teams who are working into different frequency or audit or perform audit of the stakeholders at different frequency. So one is our compliance team, of which I am part of. Okay. The other was Ankur, which I was referring to. So he is from the uh, information security team. And Varsha is from the third team, which is ERM, enterprise risk management. So we perform, compliance team performs the audit of our processes. So for a couple of projects or accounts, I would say on a monthly basis or alternate months or quarterly. So these are the 3 frequency at which we will audit a engagement or an account.
Right.
So our audits or the list of controls, for example, 48 controls checklist we have, we will perform these audits on an alternate month basis. So at the start of the financial year, what we do, we we calendarize these audits, and then accordingly we will assign the compliance officers and they will perform these audits over the year or over the period. So our function head, who is the chief risk officer, he will have the overview of, okay, during the entire year there are these 30 audits are planned, this is the current status. So if we have that calendarization, so
yes, I think that one I understand. That one is a upcoming feature in the next October release of ServiceNow. I think yeah, that is the audit planning and audit need assessment feature. So if we start in the next release, we will have that. And the workaround is we just use Excel to upload our plan. So we will still have to create the plan in Excel and then upload it manually.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the workaround. Yeah.
As of in current scenario, we are
current scenario. That's so. Yeah, if you want a like an annual view of all your audits which are planned for the next 1 year, that one is upcoming. Because
upcoming feature.
Upcoming feature. Yes.
Okay. Okay, fine. So moving back to our ID thing. So
yes.
Here, and what I understand, like there would be one, or I'll give you the role names and what would be their role. I would explain. So one would be the audit manager, or at the top it would be the chief risk officer, who will see it on an from an senior management level. So वो एक ID that would be the last thing which we can discuss कि उनको किस तरह से overall सब कुछ दिखता है, dashboard and all. But the first thing would be the audit manager, who will plan all these audits over the tool कि कौन से control हो गए, और okay अभी calendarization तो नहीं है, but will I guess we'll be able to replicate an audit again.
Yes. You will be able to create an engagement, add controls, add control tests. So I already have created two generic IDs, Audit Manager 1 and Audit Manager 2. ये दो create किया है हमने अभी.
Okay. So what I saying was कि पहले तो एक audit manager हो गया हमारे, okay, who will create the audits कि these are the 48 controls that the compliance officer has to test every alternate months, and he will align those audits to the compliance officers. So audit manager का एक role हो गया. Okay, then it will be the compliance officer, or we can say the auditor, who will audit the controls.
Okay, auditor will do the actual audit, who will
Correct.
run audits, right? Okay.
So when जब audit manager ने audit frame किया होगा, they will assign the controls to the auditees, जो हमारे इसमें respondents थे, I guess.
Control tests. The control test they will assign to auditees. The audit.
Yeah, auditees.
Auditees. Okay. So, but how do we? Okay, so the auditees are the ones who will provide the response to the risk assessment and control testing. Okay.
So a workflow is, and a first audit manager will perform or create the audits, assign the controls to the auditees. Then we will have some deadlines for them to submit the evidences. It will flow to the auditor's review part or auditor's workflow. He will validate the evidences, and once his, and there was a couple of things I asked, like the auditee has not provided all the evidences, so can I move back to them? So move back, फिर वापस उन्होंने नए evidences दिए, and then again it was not up to the mark or compliant नहीं था. So we would mark that as an non-compliant, and then have that approved by the manager.
Audit manager, correct.
Audit manager.
Yes.
And once audit manager approves it, then we will publish a draft report to the stakeholders.
Got it.
Okay, so
right.
Once,
yeah. Okay.
So in between the roles and roles where the audit manager means who will create the pura workflow or controls, then the auditor.
Right.
Third one was the auditor's manager. So the one who will create, we can say admin, for example, audit admin, auditor, audit manager, and the stakeholders. So these are the 4 roles for now, which I can see which emphasis would require.
Okay. So what about risk? You don't have separate role for risk, right? The same people will be creating the risk and creating the controls.
Yeah, so the one who was the audit admin will create these controls or risks.
Okay.
And they will assign it to the stakeholder. And also at the same time, the auditor would be assigned. So once stakeholder submits, auditor will get the notification. He will review the evidences, get a sign off from his manager, and publish a draft to the stakeholders जिनका हमने audit किया है.
Right. Now, for the purpose of this testing, Antariksh, suppose I give you the access for Audit Manager, right? But I also want you to do end-to-end testing so that you
Correct.
go through it, which means you are not assigning actually to someone else. You are assigning everything to yourself, just like I did in the demo.
Yeah, or at
Right.
least if we can have like what I was thinking was like, as I said, we have 3 teams, or rather 4 teams: ERM, FRM, InfoSec, and compliance team. So
Hmm.
4 set of IDs and 4 roles, like the admin of that particular function, then the auditor, auditor's manager, and the stakeholder. So 4 from our team can take a role, log in with that ID, and test the tool.
Yeah, but they will test their own part, or they can test the end-to-end, just like I did. Right?
No, they'll test their own part.
Yeah, so that's what. So suppose, so how will we coordinate in that scenario? Because if we are doing a implementation, then we do a UAT. Then it is like we do very coordinated, well coordinated method. Like for example, we sit in a room and you as an auditor submit something, and then the the physical security team, they are the auditees. They respond to the task, and then it comes back to you for review.
Correct.
Then work. So you sit in a team and do it. Sit in a room and do it. Uh, so what we have done the way, okay, so I explain how the scenarios we have documented, the document which I'm going to send. We have audit manager role. We also have risk manager role or the compliance manager role. These 2 roles are there. Okay. So wherever we have a step like assign a user for assessment. I have written assign it to yourself so that you get the assessment and you are able to work on it. That's how I've written it. So we have access as per what you have, but it's just the way you are testing is through that, so that you can test it end to end. As an individual, you can sit at your home and you can test the whole process.
Correct. So
to understand the capability. Yeah. I understand the rules are all there, but just actually a risk manager and audit manager can do everything in these 2 Word documents which I'm sending to you.
Okay. So even we would have the view of how does it look for an auditee.
Yes.
So,
because you are the actually a higher access person in the system, right?
okay,
So
with audit manager.
Yeah, with being the audit manager, so you have all the views.
Okay.
Yes.
So, or this is the role play kind of. If we can do that, that would be helpful. Like because we'll be able, and even we will be able to see the movement of
the tasks between one team
transactions.
to
Yeah.
another team. Okay. So in that case, see, I have created. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have created risk manager, which you can also call compliance manager because they have both the roles. They can add controls as well as risks. Audit manager, who can manage the audit engagement and then assign audit tasks and all that. And then we have these users who are kind of auditees because we have user from IT department. Depends which department's audit you are doing. Suppose you are doing audit for IT security department, then I have 2 auditees from that department. Okay, I actually all of them have the same access in the system because I don't want to restrict because you are testing. Then one major feedback we get is, hey, I'm not able to access this particular part because you don't have the role. So I've given all the roles to all these users actually, but just for the purpose of so you can assign and reassign between yourself and collaborate between yourself. That's why we have created so many IDs. Okay, if you want, I can change the names of some of these IDs, like what you were saying, audit manager, and then audit. What was the other one? Auditee, auditor.
Yeah. So if we can have these 4 role-based IDs, it would be
Okay. So okay, let's do that. First one is audit manager, right? What's the just an audit manager?
First, maybe okay. So first would be the audit admin who will create this controls and all.
Got it. One second. I'll just do it right now. If you're okay, you have 5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes because 5:30 I call.
5:30. Okay. First is audit. Okay, done.
So he will have the admin rights to create an audit engagement, as you were saying.
Okay. And then you have audit manager, right?
Then we have audit manager, like who is the manager of the auditor, like
correct.
In our workflow, who was the approver.
Correct.
He will have those kind of accesses.
Okay, so approver is audit manager. Okay. And who is doing the actual audit tasks?
We'll say the auditor.
Auditor. Okay.
And the last one would be the auditee, who will be
auditee.
providing
So
the evidences.
Basically.
Yeah.
Department user, right?
Yeah.
So these will be by departments, right?
No, so we'll not need the
department.
Okay. Because.
Okay, so I'll just say auditee.
Then we have auditee and 2-3 auditees.
Yeah,
like
we can add auditee 1, auditee 2. Is that okay? I'll just put them one.
So maybe actually you were correct in like last name if we put like physical security or IT and admin.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that was better.
Yeah, okay. So I'll continue like that.
IT team. Can say.
Okay.
So, and the admin would be the third, like admin team or physical security.
Okay, so as long as these users in the system, you will be able to assign tasks to them. So you will be able to see how they are getting the task, and then they respond to the task, and then you work on those reviews. That's what you want to test, right?
Yes. But the limitations also should be there for the auditee or the auditor. Like
the limitation, if I put, then they will not be able to view the controls, the risks.
Correct, and they should be able to see only what is limited or allowed to them. Because there we will be able to know, okay, these things are not, or they are not able to modify these things.
Okay. Then in that case, I'll have to give them just the audit user role. They should not be able to modify the controls or the risks.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So like, so now we have this. So this was one set of, so can we have 4 of such? And maybe if you can give me the link over which we can access this and the user ID and passwords. So I'll distribute it amongst our teams, and then we'll update you maybe on Monday with our when we should meet with for the further session.
So you want such set, like total 12 auditees, or is it?
So how many we created? I guess 3 auditees, one
Three
auditor,
auditees, one auditor, one audit
one
manager.
manager, and one admin. So I guess 6 we have.
Yes, 6 we have created. Yes.
Because we have 4 teams, we want each of them to test and come back with their queries or the challenges they have.
Yeah, but one thing is you will test as per the steps which we have given, right?
Yes, and if
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, because that restriction and all I have not put in my steps. So that we have not configured the restrictions and we have not put it. So I think it should be good because anyways you have the full, it's just based on out of the box rules. You can see where we are getting stuck and we can update. Yeah.
like so the manual which you were referring,
Yes.
I guess we should have stopped the recording earlier.
Oh, is it still recording? Sorry.
Yeah.
How do I stop it? Stop recording.